My male 24 parents passed away when I was very young. I have 3 siblings, a sister and 2 brothers, who are much older than me. My oldest brother Dan was 26 at the time, and my second brother George was 23. George inherited a lot of money when our parents passed away, so we had no financial problems. After my parents passed away, I wanted to live with either my sister Sophie or George, but both of them made it very clear that they didn't want me. Sophie was living in a dorm, and George said he had a kid and he couldn't take care of another one. But this is BS, because my oldest brother has kids too, and none of my siblings was attending school. I didn't want to live with Dan because he was our half-brother, and I wasn't close to him. Miss Annie lived in another city, away from all my friends and the rest of our family, but he was the only one who wanted me, so I went with him. Unlike what I thought, my oldest brother is actually awesome, and I had a very good life. I still live with him. My other siblings didn't even bother to call much. This was a short background that might be relevant. Recently, George lost everything in a house fire. I don't know or care about what happened. All I know is he's in awful condition. My sister left the country a few years ago, so my oldest brother's the only one who can help him. A few days ago, my oldest brother told us George and his family, wife and sons, tweens and nearly adults, want to move in with us for a while because they have no other options. His wife doesn't have family. Stan's room, my room, his daughter's room, his son's room, and our gaming room. So we have the space for them to move in. Dan said he doesn't want to force us to give up our space and wants us to figure out something that works for us. My nephew said that he's fine with giving up the gaming room or sharing for a short time. But I said screw them. I'm not sharing or giving up anything for them, and my niece does what I say, so she's on my side. Dan said he's a bit disappointed, but he won't force us to do anything. However, George and his wife think I'm a selfish idiot.
You are the idiot, not because you don't give a darn about the brother who clearly didn't give a darn about you. Oh, you're the idiot because you're interfering with your half-brother doing for your other brother exactly what he did for you, helping out when help is needed. As you said, your half-brother's an awesome person and the type who, helps, family when they need it.
Yep, being a 24-year-old living rent-free with a person who is kind enough to take in a little kid while simultaneously contributing to a tween nephew becoming homeless is mind-boggling. He'd really rather be able to have a room dedicated to video games than let 2 minors have a safe place to sleep. So even if you want to hate your second brother forever, you're comfortable playing the role your second brother played to some other kid.
I'll break the cycle.
That sounds horribly manipulative.
We were at doghouse in the district Stan's home. Niceness was more of a question posed to Dan's children regarding their comfort with having house guests since Op's a 24-year-old man and far from a child. Op's trying to manipulate the kids to get revenge, which is not okay.
If the brother wants to help his sibling, he can do so, and if Op isn't careful, he may wear out his own welcome. Honestly, it would be so hard to help someone that walked away from you. Your half-brother is very kind. You're fortunate he took you in and gave you a good life. And you were so young when traumatized. Based on the ages of your nephews, it It sounds like your brother and wife had a toddler and weren't prepared to have another child in the house. Forgiveness is good for your soul, not a suggestion to let them move in, just something that might help you. The brother was 23 and filthy rich due to inheritance, and Ope was a little kid frightened to go to foster care. You're not the idiot. Knowing that you are a helpless child and your full siblings would choose to abandon you, I would say that your feelings are justified. I would offer to take the kids in like a decent family member would do, and like they didn't do for you. Screw the adults. Your bro was 23, had a kid and wife, and just got an inheritance. Way more than enough to help and not send you to foster care. My wife is so neglectful regarding chores and does a half-baked job. Today was the third time this week I found a glob of residue on my plate and I lost it. I grabbed the plate, brought my wife over to the sink, and demonstrated how to scrub the entire plate properly, and she just zoned off and stared into space. I told her to stop being disrespectful and watch my demonstration because she clearly doesn't understand how to wash the dishes properly. Or maybe now that I think about it, she's just pretending to be incompetent at it. She started crying when I said this and told me to leave her alone, and she ran to the bathroom. I do the dishes and all the other chores half the time, and I do a proper job without being reminded beforehand. Meanwhile, my wife has to be constantly reminded and begged to do her turn of chores, whether that be dishes or mopping, and she whines and complains when I remind her to do it and will do a half-baked job and rush through it so she can get back to whatever else she's doing. I take my household responsibilities seriously because I respect the value of living in a clean home, while my wife acts incompetent at doing chores to get out of doing them, and because she doesn't feel like it. I told her the first 2 times this week when she left dirty plates, asking if she could be more thorough by cleaning the plates because it's just gross to find residue on them. She just rolled her eyes and said, yeah, and blew me off. Her laziness for chores isn't just when it comes to dishes. She does all the laundry under the same settings, because it's too hard to remember which settings to use for each type of clothing. But I literally made a list guide for her so she could remember each type. But when it comes to vacuuming, she tries to finish as fast as she can, so the rooms are left with giant patches and streaks of dust. It's her overall attitude of neglect that's bothering me, because she expects me to do a proper job when it's my turn, so she knows she can get away with acting incompetent. And I know she's not inept at doing these chores, because whenever we have guests she cares about coming over, she'll somehow muster up the energy and knowledge to properly clean stuff and cleaning seriously. I feel bad for making her cry, and I'm sick of her not doing a proper job. Am I the idiot? Close to my dad's side of the family, our grandparents are my mom and dad's parents. And parents, my dad and I have traveled across the country together. And my dad and I have traveled across the country together, visiting at least once a week while growing up. My dad has an older brother and sister, each with their own set of children. I'm my dad's only child. Since last year, my grandmother passed away. One day as I was sitting with my grandmother, she gave me her wedding and engagement rings as a 19th birthday present. I was completely shocked, but flattered to be gifted these rings. However, this gift upset my entire family as I was not the next in line to receive them. Shortly after her death, my grandfather received my grandmother's life insurance check. While eating dinner with my grandfather, he told me he had decided to use my grandmother's life insurance check to pay for my tuition and housing at college, because that's what my grandmother would have wanted. As my aunt, my dad's sister, is helping my grandfather manage his finances now that my grandmother has passed. This when my grandfather told my aunt about his plans for the money, she was furious. My aunt's daughter was next in line to receive the rings I was gifted. That my aunt and her children rarely came around when my grandparents were healthy, as they lived 2 hours away. I was always at my grandparents' house growing up. I feel like if I was gifted the rings and my grandfather willingly decided to pay for my tuition, I would have no reason to feel like the idiot. But I do. My entire extended family is upset with me. Am I the idiot? Should I give the rings to the next in line granddaughter? Selfishly, I want to keep the rings as my grandmother wanted me to have them, but I also don't want to lose my family over them. I guess I used the words next in line out of context. My aunt's daughter, my cousin, is the oldest granddaughter and was supposed to inherit the rings. However, my grandmother was completely coherent when she gave me the rings and asked me to take them off her fingers, and then she slipped them onto mine. It was one of my favorite memories of my grandmother. Not the idiot, but honor your grandparents' wishes, and don't let arbitrary birth order be the deciding factor. That's what your aunt and cousin want because that privileges them. If pressured again, I would respond with something like, I've chosen to respect my grandmother's wishes. This is what she chose. I agree. These are the grandparents' belongings to do with as they wish. No one's guaranteed to inherit anything. Up should keep everything and ignore the family trying to pressure her to do otherwise. I find it very weird when family members believe they have a right to anything simply due to blood relations. If you didn't earn it, everything you receive is a gift, not a right. This isn't a line of succession to the throne. That your grandmother's possessions, and she can dispose of them exactly as she likes. I'm sorry for your loss. It sounds like she was a big part of your life. Do not give the rings to anybody and take care of your grandfather. I, 35, have been married to my wife, Jen, 30, for 3 years. And before that, we dated for 6 years. She's also 32 weeks, 8 months pregnant with twins. She's my best friend and I absolutely adore her. Swick was one minor flaw. She's a huge workaholic and perfectionist. While we both have very well-paying jobs, Jen's job is way more stressful and time-demanding. Even though she's brilliant and fabulous at what she does, she often works around the clock, on average 60 hours a week, at home and in the office. That wasn't a problem before, but about 2 weeks ago, her doctor told her to take a step back from work, i.e. go on early leave, because the stress was starting to cause her a couple of health issues. However, being the workaholic that she is, she's still been working from her laptop 6 to 8 hours every day, which I understand that she has a couple of cases that she needed to finish. Because on most days, she was so focused on work that she forgot to eat meals and fell asleep at her desk. So yesterday when I got home, I realized she had done the same thing again. I woke her up and told her she needed to rest in bed. She insisted she was fine and that there was an emergency with a client of hers and she just needed to finalize some things for a coworker. How was goading forces equal? I asked her to take a break first and take a nap and eat, but she said she would once she was done and that it wouldn't take her more than an hour. I told her fine, but no longer than an hour. I was pretty annoyed. So 2 hours later, when she was still working, I became frustrated and unplugged the Wi-Fi and put the cable out of sight. The only purpose of this was to cut her off from work on her laptop because she clearly had no intentions of stopping. Once she realized this, she yelled at me, called me an idiot, and said I was treating her like a child, and accused me of being controlling, condescending, and borderline abusive. I told her she was being stupid and just let the coworker who asked for help handle it. I said that she was free to use the mobile hotspot on her phone or figure out the router herself, but otherwise, I'd plug it back in when I woke up, which I did. She was so mad that she slept in the guest room, and when I went to apologize the next morning for calling her stupid, she was still angry with me. Next morning, I'm still feeling like I might have been a bit extreme, even if I only did it out of concern. However, she's overdoing it by trying to meet deadlines she's not even supposed to be responsible for. Am I the idiot to a certain extent? I get your concern, especially if her doctor said to limit stress. Does she need a better work-life balance? Probably. The way to deal with that concern is not by taking away your wife's autonomy. That's unacceptable in a relationship. She's probably working her butt off now, so she doesn't have to do anything once the babies arrive. My wife is an adult and gets to make her own choices. If you disagree so vehemently with those choices, you can choose to make an issue out of it. But just unilaterally making a choice for her over her objections about her own health is everything your wife told you it was, with emphasis on the condescending. If you think your wife actually has an addiction or a serious problem with her work patterns, then you should tell her that and push for therapy, not go behind her back and sabotage her decisions. Not when you don't agree with them. Participation, I'm going against the grain here. She's being irresponsible with her health and the health of the babies. The doctor told you to go and leave early, but she continued to work and not really take care of herself. No, I don't think you're the idiot. You're concerned and just want your wife to follow the medical advice for her and the baby's safety. Right, everyone's missing the fact that she's being irresponsible. He's right to be controlling when the girl can't even properly care for her unborn child. She's not eating. She falls asleep randomly at the desk. The amount of you are the idiot just shows how everyone wants to blame a man. She wouldn't be treated like a child if she didn't act like one. Up's not her parent, but he is those babies' father. Update. Am I the idiot for shutting off the home Wi-Fi so that my wife would stop working? Jen and I had a calm discussion about last night. She called me on my crap and told me that I only stressed her out more by cutting the internet, something a lot of people pointed out. We both decided how we would respond if the other person was acting in a way that was harmful to our family, so that we would both feel respected. I apologized for calling her stupid, and she apologized for calling me abusive. As it turns out, neither of us meant the name-calling. I promised to trust her judgment, and she promised not to overdo it with work. I mentioned that we should go to therapy at least once before the boys are born, and she also thought that was a good idea. We made up, got burgers, and she passed out on the couch. But I do agree that I was in the wrong here, and I accept my judgment. It's deserved, and I'm going to work on myself. I'm glad you two talked about it, but your wife seems to be a bit self-destructive in being a perfectionist. That you're having a child together, it's wonderful that the father-to-be is involved and cares for the children. She's not an idiot, but should address her unhealthy behavior because that's what it is. Workaholism is destructive and unhealthy and can destroy families, bodies, and lives.